The sky over Vega Station-9 exploded into a blazing crimson, casting a ghastly glow across the barren landscape. Lieutenant Mara Voss stood at the observation deck, her heart racing, an instinctive dread coiling in her gut. Then came the shudder, a deep vibration that rattled the walls like the roar of a distant storm. The communication systems crackled and went dark, one by one, like extinguished stars in the night. "It can't be happening," Mara whispered, her voice barely a tremor against the ominous sky. She turned her gaze onward, drawn to the horizon where something vast pierced the atmosphere, trailing fire and smoke. She squinted, but the object vanished behind the jagged mountains, leaving only silence in its wake. Mara's fingers danced over the edge of the control panel. The satellite feeds were gone. "Get me a visual on that crash!" she shouted into the intercom, but no response came. Static filled her ears, cold and isolating. She slammed a fist against the console, frustration boiling over. And then, all at once, everything went dark. The colony's outposts extinguished, their lights snuffed like candles. Only the main settlement remained, surrounded by flickering shield walls. Panic surged through the inhabitants. The screens buzzed with frantic voices as the settlers scrambled for answers. "Mara, what's happening?" It was Lieutenant Nathan, his face appearing in a flicker of weak emergency feed. "Hold tight. I'm trying to regain control," she replied, her tone steadier than she felt. Just then, a fragmented transmission broke through the chaos. A voice, disoriented, terrified, pierced the stillness. "They're already inside." Chills raced down her spine. "Who's inside?" she demanded of the screen, but the feed stuttered, cascading into a patchwork of garbled sounds. She stepped back, the enormity of the situation crashing over her. Nathan's expression grew grim. "The outer posts are reporting creatures. Invasion, maybe." "Get everyone to the shields," she barked, forcing herself to remain calm. Every instinct screamed for action. She slipped on her tactical gear and motioned for Nathan to follow her. As they navigated through the dimly lit corridors, Mara scanned for any signs of life. The usual buzz of conversation was replaced by a hushed tension, as if the very walls held their breath. She could almost hear the whispers of the colonists, fear mingling with uncertainty. Suddenly the ground trembled, and the lights flickered violently, casting eerie shadows against the walls. Just as they stepped into the main terminal, a distant boom reverberated, shaking the foundations of the settlement. "Get down!" she yelled, instinctively pulling Nathan toward cover. They crouched as debris rained from the ceiling. The panic was suffocating. "What do we do now?" he shouted over the din. A piercing scream erupted from the lower levels, followed by the crash of something heavy hitting the floor. The tension was palpable, the air thick with the scent of fear and the unknown. In that moment, as Mara surveyed the chaos around her, she felt the ground quake again. But this time, it was accompanied by a high-pitched hum that seeped into her mind. A whisper, echoing and distant. "Mara, find us." Before she could process the message, a bone-chilling scream echoed from the depths of the structure, an unnatural sound that struck her to the core. She exchanged a terrified glance with Nathan, who looked equally lost. "Mara, what the hell was that?" "I don't know," she managed, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Every instinct screamed at her to run, yet something else held her in place, rooted by dread and determination. A flicker of crimson light broke through the dust-laden air, illuminating the terminal. The urgency of the moment hung heavy, every second stretching into eternity. The sky had turned red, but the real terror came from below. They're already inside. The words clung to her like an unwelcome shroud, a harbinger of the chaos yet to come. The wasteland beyond Vega Station-9 was a hellscape of ash and shattered earth. Mara Voss tightened her grip on her blaster as her recon team moved through the scorched remains of what once was. The crimson sky loomed above them like a malevolent eye, watchful and ruthless. "Stay sharp," she ordered, scanning the horizon. Each step crunched against the charred debris, a testament to their lost outposts. The magnetic disturbances flickered like fireflies in her peripheral vision, urging them further into the depths of chaos. "Do you really think we'll find anything?" Nathan murmured. He walked closely, his brow furrowed with worry. "We have to," Mara replied, her voice steady despite the unease bubbling within her. "We need answers." A howling wind swept past them, carrying the scent of burnt minerals and something else, something organic. Her instincts prickled as they approached the crash site. "There! Straight ahead!" one of the team members shouted, pointing. A hulking shape lay partially buried in the ground. Its texture was unlike any vessel Mara had seen before, pulsing and twitching, as though it were a living organism. "What the hell is that?" Nathan whispered, awestruck. Mara's heart raced. She approached cautiously, her blaster drawn. "It's a scout vessel, but it's alive." Just then, a series of violent shakes radiated from the wreckage. The vessel stirred. Jagged openings flared into view, revealing a dark void within. "Get back!" Mara yelled, but it was too late. A swarm of insectile creatures burst forth, scuttling in chaotic formation. They were small but swift, glistening with an unsettling sheen. "Fall back!" Nathan shouted, already in motion. Mara fired her blaster, the beams slicing through the air, but the creatures evaded her shots with dizzying precision. "You think this is a good time to play hero?" Nathan panted, dodging a wave of the creatures as they advanced on the team. "Not exactly," she snapped, grasping for a solution. "We need a distraction." Mara swung her blaster around erratically, firing towards the supply cache they had brought. "Cover me!" With a fierce bang, the cache erupted, sending a plume of smoke and debris into the air. The swarm hesitated, catching the fleeting moment of chaos. Mara and Nathan seized the opportunity, sprinting toward the perimeter. As they raced away, Mara glanced over her shoulder. Just then, she caught a glimpse of something humanoid crawling out from the wreckage. Tall, slender, and eerily graceful. "What was that?" one of the team murmured, flabbergasted. Mara's heart dropped. "I don't know, but we need to get back to the settlement now." They fled, adrenaline surging through their veins, the memories of screeches and scuttles echoing behind them. As they crossed back under the flickering shields of the main settlement, Mara felt dread gnawing at her. They'd barely escaped, but what had they brought with them? The colony was in desperate need of answers, and she feared the worst was yet to come. The air was thick with dread as Mara stepped inside the settlement's lab, the sterile white walls a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Flickering monitors illuminated the faces of the scientists, hunched over a table cluttered with alien fragments, their murmurs low and filled with tension. The lights overhead buzzed, casting eerie shadows, reflecting the unease that gripped her. "Lieutenant Voss!" Dr. Liana Torres called, looking up from her work. Her freckled face wore an expression that danced between hope and fear. "You need to see this." Mara strode over, her heart pounding in her chest. "What have you found?" Liana pointed at a pulsing piece of alien biotech, its surface shimmering with iridescent colors. "It's reacting to neural data we collected from the survivors. No doubt about it, it's a direct link." "Link to what?" Mara asked, a knot forming in her stomach. "To whatever's out there. The creatures. They're not just mindlessly attacking. They're responding to something." Liana hesitated, her hand brushing over the device. "It's all designed to interface with human brain activity. We might be more compatible than we thought." Mara's thoughts spiraled. Compatible how? What do they want? Before Liana could respond, a sudden surge erupted from the laboratory equipment. Alarms blared, flashing red lights creating a sense of urgency. "Shut it down!" Mara shouted, her instincts kicking in as she stepped back, blaster at the ready. Panic rippled through the lab as scientists scrambled for control. In that moment, Dr. Thomas, a physicist known for his reckless curiosity, leaned closer. "Wait! I think I can—" "Tom, get away from it!" Mara yelled, but it was too late. Liana gasped as a pulse of energy enveloped Thomas, lifting him off the ground. His eyes rolled back, a soft chime escaping his lips as he seized, a haunting connection forming between him and the alien device. "Mara, help him!" Liana cried, her voice trembling. Mara rushed forward, but the blinding light around Thomas glared like a sun. She shielded her eyes as the resonance grew more intense. Flashes of alien landscapes flooded her mind, and for a single heart-stopping moment, she felt the mind of a creature similar to the insectiles back at the crash site. Terrifying echoes of its purpose and pain surged through her. Then, just as quickly, the connection shattered. Thomas collapsed, gasping for breath. As Mara kneeled beside him, he sputtered incoherently, his eyes flickering with fear. "They're not invading," he murmured, shivering as if the air held a chill. "They're recalling." "Recalling what?" Mara pressed, her heart pounding. He couldn't answer. His eyes widened in horror as he pointed toward the lab's monitors. A distant mountain range erupted in a pulse of crimson light, the sky beyond the settlement following suit, flushed with ominous energy. "It's them!" Liana exclaimed, backing away from the screens. "They're reacting!" Mara's pulse quickened. She turned to Liana. "We need to get to the central hub. Warn the colony." Before they could move, the ground beneath them quaked. A warning signal blared throughout the settlement, casting shadows that danced like wraiths across the walls. "What now?" Nathan's voice echoed from the doorway, panic lacing his words. "Shut down all systems! They might be targeting us!" Mara ordered, rushing past him. "Right! I'll gather everyone!" Nathan darted away as Mara and Liana sprang into action, but as they rushed toward the hall, the crimson light pulsed again, overwhelming the settlement with a cacophony of distortion. Then a voice, cold and haunting, pierced through the chaos. It whispered from the dark, echoing across the walls. "Awaken the lost." Mara froze. Who were they calling? What had been awakened? The monitors faded to black as the lights flickered out, the entire settlement thrown into darkness. Whispers clawed at the edges of her mind. Fear gripped Mara, pressing down on her chest like a vice. Suddenly, everything went silent. And in that suffocating silence, she realized It was no longer just the reclaimers they had to fear. Something more sinister had risen beneath the shadows, waiting for its chance to strike. The shrill wails of alarms echoed through the colony as chaos unfolded. Mara stood at the entrance of the command center, pulse racing. She could feel the fear radiating from the people packed inside, eyes wild and frantic. "Lieutenant Voss!" Major Grant shouted, waving her over. His normally steady demeanor had crumbled. "You need to see this." "What's going on?" Mara asked, pushing past terrified civilians. "It's a data leak," he said, his voice tense. "Old records about Vega Station-9. It wasn't just a colony. It was a secret terraformed prison for dissidents. The reclaimers, they've come for someone buried in our past." Mara's stomach dropped. "What do you mean? Who?" "They're linking the colony's history to something, or someone." He thrust a tablet toward her, the data scrolling too fast to comprehend. The room trembled as the ground shook fiercely, a reminder of the crimson pulse still thrumming in the air. Mara gripped the edge of the table, her memories of the alien vessel flooding back, muted whispers, echoes of intent. Something was awakening. "People are losing it outside. We can't keep this a secret," Grant continued, eyes darting to the crowd restless with mounting panic. "Survivors are demanding answers. Factions are forming. It won't be long before—" A crash interrupted them. The door burst open, and a group of civilians stormed in, their expressions wild and desperate. "Why are we still here?" a woman shouted, a young child clinging to her side. "What are you hiding?" "Yeah," another voice chimed in. "We deserve to know what's happening." "We're working to find answers," Mara began, but the crowd's fear morphed into anger. "No more secrecy!" a man yelled, pointing an accusing finger at Mara. "She's the reason they're here." "What?" Mara's heart sank. "That's not true. I'm trying to protect everyone." "Protect?" he scoffed. "You led us into this. You brought the reclaimers. What do they want from us?" Mara felt the weight of their anger pressing in. The voices blended into a chaotic symphony, drowning her thoughts. Suddenly, the monitors flickered to life with static, drowning out the shouts. A distorted voice emerged, echoing with chilling certainty, "Awaken the lost." The uproar stalled. Silence enveloped the room like a shroud. Mara's breath quickened. Something deep within her stirred, a connection pulling at her memories. She thought of the alien tech, thoughts and fears merging. What had they seen through her? "Lieutenant, what does that mean?" Grant's voice cut through her reverie, but she couldn't answer. Her heart raced as the realization hit her. They weren't just calling the past, they were calling for her. Before she could process it, the entire settlement shuddered again, lights flickering ominously. The crowd gasped as a shadow passed over the bay's entrance, a massive silhouette outlined by crimson light. Mara's eyes widened. "We need to evacuate, now!" But the hush that followed was pregnant with dread. In the silence, she felt it, an ancient purpose awakening, a threat looming just beyond the horizon. And as she turned to run, a flash of red light swallowed her vision, plunging the room into darkness once more. The alarms wailed their shrill warnings, cutting through the chaos like knives. Mara stood at the command center's entrance, heart pounding. Panic radiated from the civilians packed inside, their eyes wide with fear. "Lieutenant Voss," Major Grant shouted, urgency etched into his features. "You need to see this." "What's happening?" Mara pushed past frantic faces, her instincts on high alert. "It's a data leak," he said, voice strained. "Old records about Vega Station-9. It wasn't just a colony, it was a secret terraformed prison." Mara's stomach twisted. "What do you mean? Who are they after?" "They're linking our history to something, or someone." He shoved a tablet into her hand, numbers and terms flashing too quickly to absorb. As the ground lurched, reminding them of the crimson pulse lingering in the air, Mara gripped the table's edge. Memories of the alien vessel surged back, muffled whispers of intent. Something had awakened. "People are losing it outside. We can't keep this a secret." Grant's eyes flickered to the restless crowd. "Survivors want answers. Factions are forming. It won't be long before—" A crash interrupted them. The door flew open, and frantic civilians rushed in, wild desperation on their faces. "Why are we still here?" a woman shouted, her child trembling at her side. "What are you hiding from us?" "Yeah," another voice cried. "We deserve to know." "We're working on finding answers," Mara started, but the crowd's fear turned to anger. "No more secrets!" a man bellowed, his finger piercing the air toward Mara. "She's the reason they're here." Mara's heart sank. "That's not true. I'm trying to protect everyone." "Protect?" he sneered. "You led us here. You brought them." Fear and anger crashed around her like waves. Suddenly, the monitors flickered to life with static, drowning out the shouting. A distorted voice emerged, chilling and deliberate. "Awaken the lost." Silence seized the room, the uproar stifled. Mara's breath quickened. Memories churned in her mind, tangled with dread. The aliens weren't just reaching, they were calling for her. "Lieutenant, what does that mean?" Grant's question fell heavy in the air, but her thoughts scattered. They sought something buried deep within her. The connection surged, a whisper echoing in the depths of her being. Truth and terror intertwined. "Mara, we have to." The command center groaned as the settlement shuddered again. Lights flickered dangerously. The crowd gasped as a massive silhouette loomed over the bay's entrance, shrouded in crimson light. Mara's eyes widened. "We need to evacuate. Now." The silence thickened, palpable with dread. She sensed an ancient presence awakening, a shadow creeping just out of sight. Before she could react, a blinding red light swallowed her vision. Darkness enveloped the room as she fought to steady her mind. What were the reclaimers truly seeking? And what did it mean for her? The weight of her revelation pressed down. She glanced at Grant, where uncertainty mirrored her own. Then the silence shattered again. But this time, it wasn't alarms. It was the sound of screams spilling from the streets below. The alarms wailed their shrill warnings, cutting through the chaos like knives. Mara stood at the command center's entrance, heart pounding, skimming the faces filled with panic, their fear as palpable as the tension in the air. "Lieutenant Voss!" Major Grant shouted, urgency etched into his features. "You need to see this." "What's happening?" She pushed past frantic faces, instincts screaming for action. "It's a data leak," he said, his voice strained. "Old records about Vega Station-9. It wasn't just a colony, it was a secret terraformed prison." Mara's stomach twisted. "What do you mean? Who are they after?" They're linking our history to something or someone. He shoved a tablet into her hand, numbers and terms flashing too rapidly to absorb. The ground lurched beneath them, a reminder of the crimson pulse lingering in the air. Mara gripped the table's edge, recalling whispers of the alien vessel. Something had awakened, and it was calling for her. People are losing it outside. We can't keep this a secret. Grant's eyes darted toward the restless crowd. Survivors want answers. Factions are forming. It won't be long before... A crash echoed in the hall as the door flew open, and frantic civilians rushed in, wild desperation painted on their faces. "Why are we still here?" a woman cried, the child at her side trembling. "What are you hiding from us?" "Yeah," shouted another voice. "We deserve to know." "We're working on finding answers," Mara began, rushing to re-establish control. But the crowd's fear turned to anger. "No more secrets!" a man bellowed, his finger stabbing the air toward her. "She's the reason they're here." Mara's heart sank. "That's not true. I'm trying to protect everyone." "Protect?" he sneered. "You led us here. You brought them." Fear and anger crashed around her like waves. Suddenly, the monitors flickered to life with static, drowning out the shouting. A distorted voice emerged, chilling and deliberate. "Awaken the lost." Silence seized the room. The uproar stifled. Mara's breath quickened. Memories of herself tangled with dread. The aliens weren't just reaching, they were calling for her. "Lieutenant, what does that mean?" Grant's question landed heavily, but her thoughts were scattering. They were seeking something buried deep within her, a connection awakening in her mind. Truth and terror intertwined. "Mara, we have to..." The command center groaned, the settlement shuddering again. Lights flickered dangerously. The crowd gasped as an enormous silhouette loomed over the bay's entrance, shrouded in crimson light. Mara's eyes widened. "We need to evacuate, now!" Silence thickened, rich with dread. She sensed an ancient presence creeping just out of sight. Before she could react, a blinding flash of red light swallowed her vision. Darkness enveloped the room, and she fought to wrestle control back into her mind. What were the reclaimers truly seeking? What did this mean for her? The weight of her revelation pressed down. She glanced at Grant, where uncertainty mirrored her own. Then, the silence shattered. This time, it was not the alarms. It was the sound of screams spilling from the streets below. "Get everyone to the shelters!" she shouted, adrenaline soaring, but her voice was lost in the rising chaos. They were no longer just trying to protect the colony. They were fighting for survival. As she moved, a part of her felt something shift, a dawning realization of a greater fate awaiting her. But was it one she wanted to meet? The air crackled, and with it came a new dread that coiled tight in her chest. The sound of metal scraping echoed ominously behind her, a herald of deeper horrors below. She turned. "Lieutenant!" Grant's fearful whisper barely broke through the commotion. "What's happening? What do we do?" And then she saw it. Shadows moving, shifting at the edge of her vision. The reclaimers, no longer just a rumor. They were here. In that moment of realization, a decision crystallized within her. She would have to confront the truth, surrendering to forces she only partially understood. Before she could act, the room shook violently once more, and the lights went out. As darkness enveloped them, her mind echoed the chilling mantra pulsing from somewhere deep inside her. Awaken the lost. The air crackled with tension. Mara rushed through the chaotic command center, heart pounding. Alarms blared, drowning out the rising panic of the crowd, faces twisted in fear, desperation etched into every line. "Lieutenant Voss!" Major Grant's voice cut through the noise, urgent and tight. "You've got to see this!" "What is happening?" She shoved through the throng, dread lacing her words. "It's a data leak." The tablet in his hand glowed ominously, flickering details across his grim expression. Vega Station-9 isn't just a colony. It's a secret prison. Mara's breath caught. Who are they after? Someone. They're linking our history to something or someone. We need to contain it. A violent jolt rocked the floor, a tremor that shook the very foundations of their world. "This is bad," she thought. The crimson pulse seemed to rise from within the ground itself. "People are out on the streets. They need answers." Her words barely got past the growing unrest. A mother's scream pierced the air, clutching her trembling child. "What are you hiding?" "Does this mean we're not safe?" Another voice shouted, a man's accusation cutting sharp as a knife. "You're the reason they're here." "No." Mara stepped forward, fighting against the tide of fury. "I'm trying to protect us." But the accusations surged, washing over her like a terrible wave. "You can't protect anyone. You brought this upon us." "Enough!" she roared, fury igniting inside her, ablaze against their blame. The monitors crackled to life, static zapping through the air. "Mara, what's happening?" Grant's voice trembled, full of dread. The distorted voice echoed, chillingly lucid. "Awaken the lost." Everything froze. Time stretched. Mara's heart raced. The aliens were not merely outside. They were calling for her, drawing her toward the very conclusion she feared. "Mara, we can't let this leak spread." Grant's voice was frantic, but her mind spun. They weren't just reaching out. They were summoning something from deep within her. Lights flickered ominously, casting shadows across anxious faces. "We can't ignore it. We need to—" A sound of metal crashing invaded her thoughts as the ground shuddered beneath them again, trembling violently. Panic erupted, and screams flared like wildfire. "Evacuate!" Mara screamed, forcing herself to act, but uncertainty clawed at her insides. She had to confront this truth. But before she could regroup, the wall next to her buckled. An enormous silhouette loomed over the bay's entrance, draped in deep crimson. "Mara!" Grant shouted, pulling her back. "We need to move!" Chaos enveloped them. A sliver of terror threaded through her mind, whispering doubts she tried to drown. What awaited them outside? What did the reclaimers really want? As the room plunged into darkness, her senses sharpened. Swallowed whole, Mara's heart thudded against her ribcage. Then came the metallic scraping, the promise of something sinister lurking, unfurling within the shadows. And then she felt it. The pull of the reclaimers, a beckoning thread woven through her very being. "Major!" she gasped, struggling to stay grounded. "They're not what we think. They're searching for something." "What do you mean?" he questioned, fear etched in his features. A crackle of energy pulsed in the silence, leaving her on the brink. "I don't know. But if we don't act now—" Before she could finish her thought, the walls around them groaned, a furious crescendo that felt like an ancient wound reopening. "Mara!" Grant shouted, panic vibrating in his voice. "We need to get out! Now!" Her resolve trembled. She was torn between what was right and what was necessary. This was more than just survival. It felt like the edge of destiny. And then the ground rumbled violently, swallowing the command center whole. Darkness engulfed them. The light faded, leaving only whispers of dread echoing in her mind. The ground shuddered. The lights flickered, casting jagged shadows across the wide, frantic faces in the command center. Mara felt the unease coil around her heart like a vice. "Get everyone out!" she shouted. The walls groaned around them, a ritual of impending doom. "Where?" Major Grant's eyes widened, fear breaking through his usually steadfast demeanor. "Just away from here," she barked, urgency flooding her voice. Each moment was a heartbeat closer to chaos. "Why are you still here?" a voice yelled from the corner. "We can't trust you. You're the reason they're coming." The accusations slashed through the chaos. "I'm trying to protect us." Mara fought against their panic, anger boiling beneath her skin, but nothing she said fell on forgiving ears. The intercom crackled to life, chillingly distorted. "Awaken the lost. The signal calls for her." "Mara, what the hell does that mean?" Grant's grip tightened on her arm, grounding her momentarily. "Something deep inside me," she murmured, panic clawing at her throat. "They're searching for me." The power surged again, crackling ominously. Mara's mind raced. They weren't just seeking revenge. They were seeking understanding, a reunion with something lost. "Mara!" Grant's voice brought her back. The trembling ground pulled her focus. She could hear it now, a pulse that resonated with their fear. "We need to leave before it's too late. Do you not understand? This isn't about us anymore." She was shouting over the growing roar of their surroundings. "They have come for more than conquest." "And what if you're wrong?" he spat, his confidence fraying. Each word hit like a shard of ice. "I have to confront this truth." The air thickened with tension, her voice now shaky. "It's not just about survival anymore." An explosion shattered nearby windows. The scent of smoke stung her nostrils. She could feel the crowd ripple with dread, instincts to flee pushing them towards the exits. "Major, we can't just abandon." Another violent tremor, this one more severe. Cables snapped overhead, sending sparks flying. The pressure built around them, echoing their fear. "Get down!" Grant pushed her behind a column as debris rained down. Panic surged, but Mara's heart raced for another reason. The reclaimers were reaching for her through the chaos. Their thoughts reverberated in her mind, drawing her deeper into darkness. "Why are they showing you this?" Grant pressed, desperation spilling from him. "I don't know, but if I faint now, they'll leave me behind." The shadows around them flickered, a deep pulse of crimson mist. It whispered her name as if they were lovers reunited after ages apart. A flicker of warmth danced into her thoughts. Was it hope or deception? "Mara!" She wheeled around. Another loud crash disrupted the only remaining calm. But Mara felt it. Their call was urgent now. The command center stood like a crumbling monument under siege. "Mara!" Grant shouted, panic simmering. "We have to go, now!" But then she saw it, a massive silhouette lurking backlit by the crimson glow. A terrifying recognition washed over her. "They're here!" "Mara!" Grant's voice was a lifeline. But the embrace of the reclaimers was inexplicable, intoxicating. Her world spiraled, betrayal, trust, desperation all intertwining in an overwhelming tempest. The walls cracked deeper. Thought and instinct collided. "Go!" she screamed, pushing him away, driven by an unfathomable force within her. "Mara, no. Come back." The tremors erupted into full chaos, an earthquake of hidden secrets surfacing. She was torn between what she was and what they needed. Then, just as hope flickered, the ground ripped apart beneath her feet. A gaping maw yawned, darkness swallowing what remained. "Mara!" Grant's hand reached for her, but it was too late. She plunged into the abyss. The world around her dissolved into an eerie silence. Below awaited the truth she had been searching for. And as darkness engulfed her, the weight of destiny settled. Her choice loomed ever closer, teetering on the edge of revelation. The walls buckled. Mara's heart drummed against her ribs like a caged beast, primal instinct seizing her entire being. "We have to move!" she screamed, the command barely escaping her lips before the ground convulsed again, reverberating through her bones. Shadows writhed as fear twisted the faces around her. "Where?" Major Grant's voice cracked, panic clawing through his usually stoic facade. The command center was a pressure cooker, and they were about to explode. "Anywhere but here!" she roared. Her thoughts raced. The reclaimers were calling for her. It wasn't a threat. It was an invitation cloaked in dread. "Mara!" The fear in his voice anchored her momentarily. What if you're wrong? What if this is all a trap? She felt his grip tighten on her arm, a lifeline in the storm. "I can't run from this anymore. They're seeking something." A blast jolted her to silence, shattering the illusion of safety. Smoke choked the air, and she gasped, the acrid scent burning her nostrils. Chaos erupted as people screamed and surged toward the exits. "Don't abandon us!" Grant's eyes were wild, an urgent glare that pierced her resolve. The command center shook again, sending sparks raining down. Her chest tightened as she felt their presence. The reclaimers, strong, insistent, echoing within her. They wanted her, needed her. "Mara!" The desperation in Grant's voice soothed, yet agitated her. "We can't stay here. I can't leave. You don't understand." Tears pricked her eyes as she fought the rising tide of fate. The shadows beckoned, promising answers to the haunting questions lurking in her mind. "Why would they show you mercy?" he pressed, disbelief swirling like a tempest around them. "Because they think I belong with them." The truth fell from her lips like a sacrilegious whisper, sending shivers down her spine. "Mara." It was almost a plea now, a sharp edge of fear mixed with determination. She turned just in time to see that dread rear its head, a dark silhouette backlit by the crimson glow permeating the air. Her pulse quickened, recognition flooding her veins. "They've come for me." "Mara, don't." Her instincts warred against her choices. The earth trembled beneath her feet. She was afraid, but a strange warmth enveloped her heart, tugging her closer to the truth aching for release. "Mara, no." Grant's cry echoed in her ears, but the reclaimer's allure was stronger. In a single breath, the ground fissured, reshaping her destiny. The abyss yawned wide, threatening to swallow her whole. She reached for Grant, desperately trying to pull him with her, but "Mara!" With a final surge, she broke free, propelled into darkness. And there, in silence, awaited the truth she had eluded all her life. The weight of her choice settled heavily upon her soul, her past colliding with the future she had barely begun to grasp. One where she would no longer be merely human, but something more, and infinitely less. The world around her collided with chaos. The reclaimers waited, their call insistent and glorious. Everyone above remained unaware of the threat rising, of the choices made. Mara had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. Time shifted, horizons blurred. In that moment of falling, reality twisted with potential. The consequence of her choice hung in the air, a single heartbeat before the storm. Silence enveloped Mara like a shroud, oppressive and heavy. The charred remnants of Vega Station-9 smoldered beneath the blood-red sky, a ghost of the colony she once fought so fiercely to protect. She floated through the rubble, each inhalation a reminder of the cost of her choices. Lives, countless lives, groaned in the wake of her leap into the unknown. Grieving faces haunted her thoughts, shadows of comrades lost amid the chaos. Nothing was as it once was. The air tinged with ash felt suffocating, a reminder that the simple hum of life had been replaced by echoes of unrest and loss. Mara caught sight of a shattered drone, its once efficient mechanics twisted and broken, much like the colony itself. What had been a sanctuary was now reduced to a graveyard of memories. Mara. The voice wove through the ruins, pulling her out of her reverie. It was Major Grant, standing amidst the wreckage, his expression a fragile tapestry of hope and despair. They stood apart yet tethered by the shadows of horrors that had come and gone, only to be replaced by something darker, an uncertain future. Mara, we lost so much. His voice broke, and in that crack, she saw the toll the conflict had taken on him. A lot of good people. We don't even know how many. He wrapped his arms around himself, a futile shield against the cold reality. What have we done? Mara felt the weight of his words sink deep into her chest. The image of her comrades, laughing, planning, bonding, now lay scattered like fragments of an old dream. We fought for our lives, she whispered, her voice barely carrying over the whispering winds. But I chose this. She knelt amidst the debris, her fingers brushing stale earth. The reclaimers had asked her to become something more. Yet what was that more if it meant leaving everything behind? The warmth she felt, their presence intertwined with her very essence, was at odds with the aching emptiness that grew in its wake. They're still out there, she continued, meeting Grant's gaze, a storm of uncertainty brewing between them. They need me. The silence thickened, and for a moment, it felt as if the world held its breath. And what do we need? Grant's voice was soft, like a question asked in the void. Mara stared into the distance, where crimson clouds churned and danced like thoughts untethered, unrestrained. They had awakened the reclaimers' ancient rage, but the predators still lurked in the shadows, hungry and restless. Maybe, she hesitated, her heart trembling with the fear of the unknown. Maybe we can find a way to salvage what's left. If I can commune with them, connect once more. Mara, every time you do that, you risk losing yourself, Grant warned. What if there's nothing left of you? What if? The question hung heavy, clinging to her like a phantom limb. I have to try, she finally replied, a fierceness igniting within her, yet softened by the weight of reality. They haven't forgotten us. They're searching for something. Someone. And maybe... Suddenly a tremor shook the ground, a distant echo of the past shaking the remnants of the moment. Above, the sky darkened further, clouds swirling as if they were echoing some ancient, chaotic symphony. "It's not over," Mara said, her voice steadying. "Not yet." She turned her gaze skyward, anticipation mingling with dread. There was a flicker, a bright surge piercing through darkness behind the crimson veil. Hope or heartache? A glimmer or a guile? Only time would reveal the answer. With her heart pounding, she beckoned Grant closer. "If I'm lost, I need you to remember who I was," she said, urgency lacing her tone. "We can't abandon the idea of peace, no matter the cost." Grant gave a solemn nod, his resolve strengthening, yet uncertainty lingered in his eyes. Dark clouds shifted above, and as visions of loss and hope intertwined, Mara felt the faint stirrings of a plan. The past might have forged them into weapons, but perhaps there was still a chance to recalibrate, to find redemption amidst chaos. "I'll find them," she promised, her heart a battleground of its own. "Mara, it could take everything from you," he warned, fierce protectiveness mingling with fear. "I know, but it's the only choice I have left." The darkness deepened, and they stood together, united by a fragile tether, humanity against the abyss. And for the first time, she saw a flicker of light beyond the red horizon. The next chapter awaited, fraught with danger yet full of possibility. All she needed to do was embrace the call of the reclaimers. Silence crackled like static, filled with the echoed weight of loss. Charred remnants of Vega Station-9 lay beneath a sky that had turned to ash. The crimson hue that once sent dread surging through her veins now enveloped everything in a macabre embrace. Mara floated through the wreckage, each step a reminder of sacrifices made. Lives lost weighed on her heart like a leaden shroud. "Mara!" The voice cut through the desolation, pulling her from the void. Major Grant stood amid the ruins, face etched with grief and desperation. His eyes, once fierce with resolve, were now haunted by shadows. "We lost so much," he said, his voice breaking. "So many good people. We don't even know how many." She felt the truth of his words pierce through her, mingling with the tumult of regret that churned in her chest. Memories surged, the laughter of comrades, their shared hopes, now interred beneath the ash. "We fought for our lives," she murmured, kneeling to touch the scorched earth, feeling the pulse of the past beneath her fingertips. But it was not just the dead that haunted her. Those who had survived were left grappling with the consequences of her choices. She had willingly severed her humanity to become a bridge between worlds. The reclaimers had needed her. But at what cost? "They're still out there," she declared, meeting Grant's gaze with fierce conviction. "They need me." Silence thickened around them, each heartbeat a drum of impending fate. "And what do we need?" Grant asked, his voice soft, brimming with the unspoken fears of the colony. Mara turned her eyes skyward. The crimson clouds churned with ancient fury, a reminder of the reclaimers' warning. They had awakened a force that demanded more from them all. "Maybe we can salvage what's left, if I can reach them again." "Every time you do that, you risk losing yourself," he cautioned, the worry etched across his face. "What if there's nothing left of you?" Her heart trembled at the thought, yet she found her resolve. "I have to try. They haven't forgotten us. They're searching for something, someone, and I'm tied to that." The ground trembled beneath them, a reminder that their battle was not yet finished. "It's not over," she insisted, her voice steadying in the face of uncertainty. "Not yet." A flicker lit the darkened sky, and dread twisted with a spark of hope. She beckoned Grant closer, urgency spilling from her. If I'm lost, I need you to remember who I was. We can't abandon the idea of peace." With a solemn nod, Grant's determination solidified. The darkness above shifted, hinting at a reckoning. Together they stood resolute, poised against the void. The past had forged them into weapons, but she would fight for something greater, for redemption amidst chaos. "I'll find them," she promised, heart pounding like a war drum. "Mara, it could take everything from you," he implored, desperate to hold her back. "I know," she breathed, an ember of defiance igniting within her. "But it's the only choice I have left." As the darkness deepened, anticipation pulsed between them. He had become her anchor, tethered by bonds forged in desperation and hope. The raging predators still lurked, but perhaps they could be more than harbingers of doom. The sky shimmered with ominous brilliance, and Mara turned again to face the horizon, eyes alight with a newfound purpose. "I'll reach out," she said, voice firm. "I'll show them what humanity truly means." In that moment, something stirred within her, a blossoming of power and potential, a whisper of kinship that would transcend the darkness. She drew a deep breath, feeling the weight of worlds resting upon her shoulders. Then, as thunder rolled across the sky, a voice echoed back, a resonance, not entirely alien nor fully human, reminding her that she was never alone. "Mara!" The wind caressed, swirling through the remnants of her existence. As she gazed into the abyss, the stakes surrounding her surged, and she understood. They were waiting for her to bridge the gap. Maybe, just maybe, together they could write a new fate. A new dawn awaited, watching the stars. She was still here. She would always be.